Nice to see you all. Thanks, guys, for joining me here. So, big picture, micromobility is less of a public nuisance as it was when it first started, right? It's more mature. There's been some consolidation. And some of you have actually started reaching profitability. So I'd love to hear kind of each of you, what is shared micromobility going to look like in the next 3 to 5 years? Michael, we can start with you.
I think I'm super excited because now that there's been a lot of companies in this category have reached EBITDA positive. I think obviously the next phase is to be free cash flow positive, so we can be self-sustaining and self-fund growth. And I think we're very close to that within, I think, 12 to 18 months. The way I look at the category in the next 3 to 5 years, I think you look at Europe. In Europe, micromobility is ubiquitous with public transportation. Rides are significantly higher. Cost per ride is lower, but it is a mode of transportation for many commuters. And I see that model transgressing across the world. North America is probably, I'll say, 18 to 24 months behind. In North America, predominant use is there's commuters, but there's also events, lots of tourists, but I see North America transitioning to very much a commuter-like product for micromobility. And so I see that happening across the world. And then I also see a world where we see multimodal usage. Yeah. So we'll see predominantly, obviously, we launched as e-scooters back in 2017, predominantly, and we've launched e-bikes to complement it. But I see e-bikes and e-scooters almost being 50-50 in every market that we operate in, because I think there's different use cases for that. So in 3 to 5 years, I see obviously continued expansion across the world, it being used as a commuting device, and multimodal.
Do you guys see anything different, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, or fully agree, and what to add.
If there's nothing, there's nothing.
There are some things to add. I think you're starting to see how micromobility can look like globally now in some European cities, to Michael's point. I mean, we have examples in Sweden, where I'm from. Stockholm is starting to be very micromobility heavy, right, where we have made it very expensive and difficult to have your privately owned car, while still allowing for ride sharing, vans, trucks, and so on for deliveries. Better infrastructure. I mean, you're starting to see it in your hometown as well, Paris. Such a difference, Paris today compared to 2017 and 18. You even start to see it in London, where no one thought it would happen, or that it would take very, very long time. Where, I mean, Lime and some others have been very, very driving in making biking cool again and biking mainstream. Yeah. So I think that's what we will see. Micromobility will become infrastructure integrated with public transport, trains, ride-hailing, and so on. And now we are representatives for bikes, e-bikes, e-scooters, but there are also e-mopeds and e-vans and form factors that we don't really know about today. Similar to where we were in 2017 when e-scooters was something very new. And I think Voi, and I know Tier-Dott and Birdspin as well have built platforms that are vehicle agnostic. So we can run any type of light electric vehicle on the platform from a software data operational point of view. So more form factors, more vehicles, more rides, more safe cities, more bike infrastructure, because that is the most important thing, most important driver, I would say.
Well, yeah. So what would you say, Henri, it needs to happen for shared micromobility to really be part of the fabric of a city's infrastructure? Like, what kind of policy changes need to happen for that to come to fruition?
I think we need to listen to what the users are telling us. And so I see 4 types of users. We have a chunk of users that are heavily using the service. It's always there, always available, reliable. It's just part of their daily lives. They do many rides. That has grown dramatically over the last 5 years. They just trust the fact it's there and it's going to change their life. Then there's a chunk of users that are like, sometimes I'll do it. It used to be the bulk of micromobility, and now I think it's a smaller chunk than the previous one. And then there was this chunk of users that would say, it's never going to be for me. Right. I'm never going to get on a scooter. That chunk is reducing quite fast. I meet so many new riders that are telling me, if that person can do it, I can do it too. And that has accelerated a lot with e-bikes, a lot more than scooters.
Yeah.
And then there's my mom and my dad that say, never for me. These people we are never going to convince.
Not even with the little seated scooters or anything like that?
No, they are too old.
Yeah.
And so you're asking what needs to change to get a bigger adoption. How far can it go? Nobody knows, but I think it can get as big as ride-hailing, for example. Maybe half of the city will be using that on a regular basis. And the primary concern in the past has been safety and more bike lanes. I think they want a proper service, so available, reliable, safe, and we all do a good job at that, so they're getting more and more comfortable. And then the arrival of e-bikes has completely changed the game for many of these users.
Yeah, well, I mean, in Europe, they're doing a great job at bike lanes, but, you said you think it's going to be more like Europe, where how many months behind Europe?
I'd say 18 to 24.
18 to 24. What do you know about Americans ditching their cars that I don't?
Maybe I'm hopeful about this.
Yeah,
but
well, I mean,
I look at this. I read an interesting stat. Like annually, there's about 8 trillion trips taken worldwide. 5 trillion of those are less than 5 miles. And now obviously, that's a big TAM. And then if you download that to smaller, there's probably still hundreds, if not like hundreds of millions of trips that micromobility can fulfill. And I think if we do multimodal, multi-platform, we make it as easy as possible for any rider of any age or any demographic to take micromobility, I think the adoption will be huge. And I'm super excited about the next 3 to 5 years, because I think 3 to 5 years, you will see an expansive growth in this particular category. And you will see probably a handful of providers that are profitable that will dominate this space.
Okay. I do want to talk more about, city infrastructure and your relationships with cities in a bit, but, speaking about you three in particular, your companies are largely regionalized. I mean, you're global companies, but you're kind of, Bird's more in North America, you're more in Europe, you're more Scandi than the rest of Europe, right? So
that's wrong, actually. We're more Germany than anything else.
More Germany than anywhere else. So are you reaching a plateau in your current markets? How much more can you actually double down in the markets you're already in? Anyone can answer.
So there's nothing as good as a public transit strike to understand how much potential there is. We go from a city that does, I don't know, this many rides per day to 5 times or 6 times. You have all these people that would say, I'm not sure about this, but then when there's no public transit or when there's traffic jam, they will change, and we see that. So I think there's just in our current footprint with the existing fleet so much more potential to grow.
Right, so try to make the workers in public transit unhappy so that more people ride scooters. Is that the tactic?
I won't take any responsibility for what's going over there.
Exactly. An even better combination than public transport strike is public transport strike and car-free days, as we have in Brussels and Stockholm and some other cities.
Wow, it sounds dreamy.
It is dreamy.
My neck of the woods.
I mean, Brussels has it, Stockholm has it, several other cities have it as well. And the demand those days are just crazy, because imagine yourself, even in cities with good bike infrastructure, you share the road with cars. Get rid of the cars for 1 day or 1 week or whatever the city is courageous enough to do, and you see that demand and uptake among all user groups just explode. But safety is still a barrier, and we see it especially for female users and older users. Safety is a key thing that isn't fully solved, and I understand that.
Yeah. Michael, what do you think? Because it's not like we have these free...
I think
they don't know the struggle.
No, they don't know the struggle. But I would just say, we are in 2 mega regions, Europe and North America. Obviously, there is opportunities in Europe, but I think there's bigger opportunities in North America. My hometown, Toronto, is the 3rd largest city in North America. I think the GTA population is somewhere between 11 and 12 million. There's no e-scooters. There's there's docked bicycles, but there is nothing in terms of e-scooters. And we will unlock that city at some point. We will unlock that city. And once we unlock that city, that's a huge growth opportunity. Yeah. And there are many other cities in North America that we can unlock. It's just a matter of time. Having the presence in North America, being established in North America, gives us an advantage to unlock that. But I see there's still a tremendous amount of runway in North America for us to grow for at least next, I'd say, 2 to 3 years.
Okay. I think so. There's obviously the big players have kind of taken over, but there are still smaller regional companies in smaller mid-sized cities, both in North America and in Europe. Do you see more consolidation in your futures? Would you consider acquiring any of those companies, or how are you thinking about M&A? Really, any of you? Boy, you haven't really.
Yeah, you shouldn't ask me because I'm the only one who haven't consolidated here.
So you're thirsty for it.
Exactly. I mean, I have Edward here. He's responsible for M&A. Edward, speak to Edward if you're interested.
Yeah, we'll talk later. Yeah.
Michael?
What do you think?
That's part of our plan. We've consolidated spin.
Yeah.
When Stuart and I took over, within first 9 months, we looked at the opportunity of taking over spin. We consolidated that company very, very quickly. About 4 or 5 months ago, we bought the operations from Lyft in Denver.
Yeah.
And quickly consolidated that. That's part of our platform, is to be able to consolidate. But another element that we launched back in December was also a network alliance. So what we'd also like to do is work with the smaller providers. So we partnered with Forest in London so that anyone with a Bird app can actually activate a Forest vehicle in London and vice versa. And we're active in terms of expanding that as well. So.
Yeah.
Our element is we'll work, whether it's consolidation or network alliance, with all providers around the world. Because what we wanted, I think this is part of the way of unlocking micromobility across the world, is making it as easy as possible for people to use the services.
Right. I mean, that's important. Are you looking at partnerships like that? Because Lime is so ubiquitous, right? Everywhere you are. I mean, a lot of the places that I've lived or visited, there's been Lime, and I've already got the Lime app, so I'm like, well, I guess I'll take a Lime. So yeah, how are you thinking about kind of capturing those markets and not making someone download a new app?
I don't think this is going to be a market dominated by one search box or one OpenAI chat box. What we see in our own footprint, but I'm sure they see the same, is that there are many different flavors. So, for example, the way we operate in Dubai versus a small city in Germany or in a big city like Paris or Brussels, there are different things. From a rider standpoint, could look the same, but actually there are plenty of flavors. And I don't think there'll be one company that can dominate it all. Mm-hmm. And so our job, I think, is to do a great job for the users. And so there are some basics that apply to every city, and then a great job for the city, and that's where we start to see differences. And then we have to serve that with the proper operations, and having different operations model behind the scene is the most important way to adjust.
One thing on that, on micromobility compared to, for example, food delivery and ride-hailing, I would say is, in Europe, at least, most of the rides are commuting rides, and rides made by people living in that metropolitan area. Compared to like ride-hailing, we often use it when you travel and so on. And when you use something on a daily basis, then to your point, like I have the Lime app, yeah, but if the Lime service is much worse in the city I live, it doesn't matter really that I have the Lime app. So the user experience and product offering and all of that for the people living in a city who are, the most frequent users for us is like 90% of our rides or something are from people living in that region, while ride-hailing is much more travelers.
Right.
So user experience, you can differentiate more, and it's probably more important than ride-hailing, because I would say an Uber and a Bolt here in Brussels is exactly the same. I mean, it's the same driver. He just flips between two apps.
Yeah. Finding differentiation is important, especially because you all kind of have the same hardware, right? You're all kind of using the same, is it Segway mostly, maybe a sprinkle of Okai, to outfit your fleets. Yeah?
All right. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for agreeing with me. Yeah. So, while we're on the subject of competition, there's Bolt, right? And Bolt has their micromobility arm that they could just lose money on that, right? Like they've got their whole other network. They've got rideshare, and now they've got a foothold in terms of micromobility in America. How do you see competing with a company that kind of has almost, I wouldn't say endless, but certainly more resources than the standard micromobility company today?
I mean, calling 500 scooters in Washington, D.C. a foothold is probably an exaggeration, yeah. But in the end, I mean, yeah, Bolt is a great company, but they're mainly a ride-hailing company.
Right.
They're not really winning in any other verticals, as far as I know. Not micromobility, not food delivery, and they do grocery delivery and perhaps something else.
But
as
it all
well.
kind of leads back to
ride-hailing.
Yeah, so you know
But
you
in
can have
ride-
kind of cross.
In ride-hailing, they have a competitor that's one of the best-run companies globally now, operations companies, Uber. So they need to fight with one of
Uber's
the
got a
world.
thing with Lime, so you guys are, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're still competing. So, I mean, you know, I've been hearing some whispering that there's maybe Bolt is looking to do some consolidation itself, acquire some new companies. Blink twice if it's your company.
Is it to acquire or to be acquired?
Do you think you want to acquire Bolt?
I mean, I think that makes much more sense
Does it?
for us sitting on this stage, yeah. Because back to that multi-app idea, you need to be extremely good in several verticals that are not like software, marketplace, perfect gross margin verticals. Ride-hailing is difficult, food delivery is difficult, micromobility is very difficult, and has the hardware aspect and no network effects such as food delivery and ride-hailing, and then if you do grocery delivery as well. And back to what I said before, since the consumer often, at least in micromobility, and I would guess food delivery as well, is a local consumer, they rather choose on user experience, affordability, subscription products, and so on, than this, okay, it feels so good to be part of a super app just because I can use ride-hailing in the same. So I haven't really...
Well, there's brand recognition there, right?
There is some brand recognition, but if you live in a city and see our vehicles versus a Bolt vehicle every day and our service is much better, why would you use a Bolt just because you recognize the brand?
Do you think you have a bigger footprint than Bolt?
I mean, in Western Europe, for sure. They're bigger in Eastern Europe, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would add, like, because we compete in Bolt in some of the markets as well. I mean, obviously, Bolt uses price as a loss leader. They discount the price. And that's how they acquire installs and that's how they acquire customers. But my sense is they don't make a huge investment in the other operations of micromobility to make it to Fredrik's point, a really good operations. And micromobility, it's a complex business. I mean, you got to price it right, but more importantly, you know, we use a lot of data, and I think, you know, Voy and Tier-Dott use the same thing. Is like we use a lot of data to deploy the vehicles at the right place at the right time to optimize a ride. You can dump thousands of vehicles and hope people get rides, or you can dump half of those vehicles, or not dump, but place those vehicles at the right place and the right time to optimize the rides and optimize the price. And that's what the business has really evolved in the past 2 or 3 years, is that optimization to get the yield out of every vehicle. And that, I think for us, makes it a very self-sustaining business.
Yeah, so how are you growing your margins at this point? Like, what are the biggest levers left? Do you still need to invest in R&D for that kind of, you know, balancing software and understanding where to put vehicles?
I think there are plenty of, I mean, if you look at our head of product, for example, the list of things to improve and where we could do a much better job is so long, I could use 1,000 engineers.
Yeah.
So from a software, from a hardware, you just have to talk to the users again. They will tell you instantly, I don't like this pixel, why is that screen like this, and so on. The list is so long, it's insane.
Yeah.
The basics that you describe, like, for example, machine learning to do proper placement of the fleet, optimizing pricing, even if you have the algorithm to run them in a good way and understand the different flavors. The same algorithm doesn't run in the same way in different types of cities. So all these tiny micro optimizations that lead to a much better service in some cities and worse cities for other players. But going back to your question around Bolt, I think the fundamental, if you step back, Silicon Valley, TechCrunch, Homeland, has proven again and again and again that it's extremely difficult for a company to do two things. Look at how much time it took for Uber to do food and ride-hailing in a proper way.
Yes, but that's saving it. The food is saving Uber to profitability.
But that's just two things. Look at Google, how long it took them to get more than 2 or 3 products out there. Look at Facebook and so forth. I think it's very, very difficult in general to defocus and be on multiple things at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to touch back on the software aspect. Has the the AI revolution, has that changed or given a boost to your current models and how you predict? I don't know if you change pricing based on whether someone might be a tourist or not, or where to rebalance or what have you.
I would say, obviously AI is like basically training on historical information to predict the future.
Yeah.
And so we've been using we call it machine language in terms of algorithms to predict where to place the vehicle at the right place at the right time. Our next phase is obviously at the right price. And we've been using that technology for at least, I think, probably close to 3 years implemented. I think the next phase for us is to be able to leverage AI to extract more margins. So we obviously have to provide a level of customer service.
Oh, don't do that.
Not chatbots, but to find an element to provide that still human element, but to also be efficient. Because there are standard requests people have that you could use AI to be able to simplify. Where there is a greater touch, obviously AI can't replace the human.
Right.
But there are things that we can integrate AI with human touch to improve the customer service and also improve gross margins over a period of time.
Yeah, you guys seems like obviously across the board we're seeing companies find ways to cut costs using AI, which often leads to layoffs. But and in the customer service realm, I can see the appeal. Are you doing the same?
Yes, but there were many other very interesting examples as well, I would say.
Please.
I would say in the AI, and we talked a bit about it before, because you are becoming an AI-focused reporter as well now, not only transportation.
Yeah, thanks for breaking that news for me.
Yeah, I broke the news.
Yeah.
So I think AI will be really, really amazing for non-AI native companies that are using it well. And our companies won't be AI'd away by some new super hyped Y Combinator San Francisco kids who are building a super cool AI app. They can perhaps replace an HR B2B SaaS legacy system, but we have vehicles, we have relationships, we have operations. So companies like us, who are not AI first, but apply AI both in the external products for users and cities, and also for internal productivity, both like internal LLM, mainly LLM written apps for productivity improvements and making workflows more efficient. We have so much to gain.
Yeah.
And one example, which is a very concrete one, it's touching upon customer service, but Voi, for example, I think we get tens of thousands of free text feedback comments after a ride. So you do like sad smiley, neutral smiley, happy smiley, and then free text feedback. And we get tens of thousands of those. Before LLMs hit end of 22 and 23, we had customer support agents and people in the teams reading through all those like 20,000 free text feedback comments, trying to synthesize it and get insights out from it. LLMs are amazing when it comes to reading through 30,000 free text feedbacks and do sentiment analysis and try to do some insights that a human then can take actions on. So for us, there are so many examples like that.
Yeah, I also imagine that you might be able to use the LLMs to help you kind of collate the data on your users and how they ride and what you know about them as you try to diversify your own revenue streams. You've talked about advertising. Is this something Dott is looking into as well, doing advertising kind of on the app?
Yeah, we're going to try.
Yeah.
But going back to the AI question, I think the most interesting thing for us right now is agentic AI. So we have all these processes inside the company where our own people in the company are telling us, what if I had better tools? So for example, we have this gigantic fleet that is deployed. Every morning we need to go swap the batteries or send people to repair. We've been scheduling runs of our operations people in the street. At the beginning it was manually. I remember us doing it on Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets. Then we started to automate that, and now we do thousands of them every day. And it's all automated. And we are thinking, okay, we hear all these stories about these agentic AI companies coming out of Silicon Valley. What are the good ideas we could pick and bring into how we are thinking our own operations and augment our troops?
So are you trying to build some of these tools in house, or are you using using startups and their tech to see how it goes, and then maybe you'll bring it later in house, or how are you approaching this?
We do a mix of both. I think it's very important as head of product, founders, and so on to constantly monitor what's going on in other industries.
Yeah.
Michael and I were talking about grocery delivery a few minutes ago, and what did we learn from their experience that we can bring into? It's the same. You look at all these companies that are publishing all their new products and things like that. Sometimes there are good ideas out there. Sometimes you can just use the software as a plugin. For example, customer service. I don't think any of us would, create in-house a chatbot for customer service, but there are plenty of companies that can do that. So it's the mix and match that is the most interesting piece of the job here.
Right. So like a few years ago, startups that are kind of in the peripheries of the space were doing things like, computer vision to make sure you're not riding on the sidewalks, or, swappable that. Like there was other tech that was kind of trendy a few years ago. Now, what kind of startups are you? Where's the opportunity for other startups that are hanging out on the peripheries and want to fill the gaps of your companies?
For AI?
It could be for AI, it could be for software, or just how you do your operations internally, or...
Yeah, I think when we look at this, our core part is obviously vehicles are hard assets. People are a second most important asset. And we have a large development team. And so when we look at what we can outsource or what we can leverage, my bias is actually especially if it's our data, we like to keep it there. And just our developers focus on protecting our data, because the data is very valuable for us in terms of rides. But when it comes to becoming more efficient, more faster, we'll definitely use the smaller startups to be able to do that. And I think what we're starting to see, and I'm trying to push our dev team, is instead of expanding the dev team, how do we leverage AI to actually start coding for us? And we can direct coding on some of the basic functions that saves time, and some of the higher level senior, require more critical thinking development, we'll leave it to the developers. And so what we're trying to do is sort of I don't like saying lower level, but some of the mundane tasks, we're going to outsource AI as much as possible, and the critical thinking we'll keep in-house.
Yeah.
Your question was also a bit around startups hanging at this conference, where are next-gen technology and solutions we would like to see. I think what we realized over the last 5-7 years, if you're building software that is core for larger companies, so the fleet management tool, the optimization, task logic, and so on, that is typically not a very good business model to be in, because then you only get the long-tail customers who can't build it themselves, and it's core for being a micromobility operators. We will want to do that ourselves. But to Michael's point, everything that's non-core, we have, for example, 2 examples at Voi where we started to build AI products in-house. One was a data analyst as a service. Imagine you're sitting in Slack, and instead of going to a data analyst, you ask a natural language question in Slack, for example. Which were the top 5 days on vehicle profit or EBITDA last year? So instead of going to the analyst, you write it in Slack. We started to see that is a lot of value for us. It unlocks time for the data analyst. But Voi should not build AI data analyst as a service. So then we spun that off and gave it to two founders who have now built a company from it. So really core central software we will build ourselves, and it's difficult for someone to build a great business around it. But on the hardware side, it's different, because I think all of us come from countries which are probably better on software, data, and design and so on than what we are on hardware. While we have partners, some people here in the audience, from China, India, and so on, who are better at manufacturing batteries and so on. And there is still a lot to do on the battery side. More dense batteries, lighter batteries.
Yeah, but that's not something you're putting your money into, not investing in it directly.
No, we had a Swedish company called Northvolt that tried that, that spent 11 billion. It didn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. In terms of, I'm kind of curious how this would relate to, if you're advancing any tools as it comes to RFPs and coming into new cities, and I don't know if you're modeling like which one might be successful or not for you to come into, if AI was playing into that at all.
Yeah, I can start. We were trying to build digital twins of cities where we aren't live. So basically, we gather data, both internal data from all cities where we are live and have a lot of real data, and then there is also a lot of external data about cities, open source, for the public, and then try to build digital twins of a new city. For example, Voi, together with Dott, won Paris last week. We haven't operated e-bikes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We haven't operated in Paris for a couple of years, so we don't really know how it will work out, but we use the available internal data from similar cities and other public data to build a digital twin and then build a business case.
Did you build that yourself? Did you use some external tools?
Both.
Okay.
And then from that, build a business case.
Right.
And from the business case, you decide in the tender application what you're ready to commit, both product-wise and in some situations financially as well.
Have you guys done similar things? That sounds like a great idea.
I was thinking your question on the RFP process in terms of Stuart, my co-CEO, always talks about writing RFPs is like writing the world's longest essay. You almost have to do it like every week because you have every city.
Yeah.
I think, as you know, we all know AI is just trained on historical. And so I think you can use AI to leverage, build or write RFPs for 80% of it. But there still needs to be a human element, which is why we have a great GP team to be able to understand what is the city looking for, what are the hot points, and what do we need to include in the RFP so that, you know, we put our best foot forward. So I would say AI helps save a lot of time in terms of building the RFP, but there still needs to be a human element to bring it across, what I'll call across the finish line.
Yeah. Okay. You know, speaking of RFPs, would you, just to switch it up a bit, would you bid for a loss-generating city just to keep your foothold in that region, that market?
Not anymore.
Oh.
Those were the days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Good for you. You guys? No pressure. No?
I don't think anyone does that anymore.
No? What do you think? I mean, New York's doesn't, you know.
Not going to lie.
a little tough.
New York City, we operate in Queens and the Bronx,
Little Bronx.
and we're looking to Brooklyn. We've been, I wouldn't say that's it's a close to break-even proposition right now, and we do see it's New York. I mean, it's Brooklyn, so
yeah, but it's not like the dense part of Brooklyn.
Not
you know?
the dense.
Like
it's
pretty
peripheral, but it'll expand. I think,
sorry, of the Bronx.
we do see because. The way I would look at this is you got to be very disciplined in terms of when you're in that market. And if you don't hit the milestones on your plan, then you make a serious decision as to whether you want to operate on that. But if you're tracking to those milestones and there's significant opportunity, absolutely still go for it. You don't, and you manage it portfolio. We have a significant amount of markets that all of our markets are profitable. Like 99% of our markets are profitable. You got to pick one or two. Like 1 or 2% that you feel are going to be a bit of a moonshot opportunity. I think that maybe it's a departure, but that's
right.
I feel how we got to grow on a balanced way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, New York's a great opportunity city. I don't know if you could ever get into Manhattan with city bikes kind of hold on the whole city, but it's also. Yeah, I think New York's, I cover also autonomous vehicles, and no one's really tried to get in there because it is absolute chaos, and the safety element is really challenging. And you're still kind of seeing that, I think that there's maybe less talk of all the accidents people get into, but like safety is still a huge concern, especially when people are riding around without helmets. How are you thinking of, okay, so here's an example. The London incident. You guys have heard of this? It's not one specific incident, apparently. It's just like a way that people refer to Lime bike crashes in London these days. So people are saying that they get hit by like these silent bikes and scooters that are kind of coming by. Are you thinking about ways to make them louder? Or I don't know, like how, not that it should be entirely on you, but how are you thinking about this?
I can start. A few words on safety. What we see is most of, say, 85% plus of the critical incidents are with drunk beginners. So people who have used the service,
What was that percentage?
it's 80-85%, something like that.
Really?
Yeah, so say 4 out of 5 of bad incidents are with users who have ridden less than 5 times, and they are intoxicated. So we need to do everything we can to get that out of the way through like reaction tests in the app and reminders Friday and Saturday nights. So that's one thing. The second thing also is even more than 4 out of 5 critical incidents are not scooter hitting scooter, bike hitting bike, bike hitting pedestrian. It's heavy vehicle hitting scooter rider, heavy vehicle hitting bike rider. So I think the better way to look at the road safety from in cities is how can we protect the pedestrians and people on bikes and scooters who are not covered in a car from the cars and trucks and buses, because they are the really dangerous thing in cities.
Yes, I think we all agree that cars are the dangerous thing, and that whenever people
Trucks
are
even more.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
don't get me started. But you know, I guess are cities coming around to that, right? Like, what kind of enforcement are they putting into place? You know, when micromobility first started on the streets, it felt like cities were almost punishing. There was more regulation for scooters than there has been for AI, which is like way more disruptive to the economy, right?
Yeah.
So are you seeing a shift at all in the way cities are regulating and treating you guys as if it's all like, you know, the companies must create the tech and enforce the safety, or are they kind of helping and putting more? No, they're not helpful.
Safety is becoming very.
Okay, great.
No, safety is becoming very front and center. And I think we embrace safety because actually one of our most successful markets, Tel Aviv, has probably the highest amount of regulations, but also has the highest RPD. So safety does not impact rides, and probably, in fact, encourages more rides, because if people feel riding a vehicle is safe, they're going to ride it more often. And so we embrace it with the cities, and we'll work with the cities to slowly introduce those safety measures that work for us and work for the city that is attuned to that particular city. Because what I've discovered over the past 2.5 years is every city is very different.
Yeah.
The use cases for micromobility is different. The safety requirements may vary to a degree. So we'll work with every city to make it as safe as possible for riders.
Yes, but also if it makes sense for your bottom lines, right? Like, I'm sure all of your companies have lobbied against a lot of mandatory helmet policies in different cities. I mean,
Yeah,
you
that
could
is
tell me
key.
if you haven't, but I'm sure most of you have. And most micromobility companies have, because it's like, well, I get my assumption is it's annoying to have to, you know, put helmets on all of our bikes and then find them when inevitably riders leave them places, and it is a loss generator, but it's also incredibly safe. So how do you square the two?
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, if you want micromobility adoption and move people out from heavy vehicles, then helmet laws are a quite stupid thing to implement.
Well, not if you put helmets on your bikes and scooters. It
Yeah,
can
but
be
then
done.
you also need to implement the helmet law for all private bikes, private e-bikes, private e-scooters.
You should. Well, I think you should, but
Which is not the view from European countries who have done micromobility for a very long time.
Right.
Because if you take Denmark as an example, if you want as much people as possible out on the bikes, then you need to make it as easy and safe and accessible for everyone to be on a bike. And then we're grown-ups. Like, if you take the laws in most European countries, it's if you're above 15 and you're on a bike, e-bike, e-scooter, it's up to you. You are responsible for your own safety and health. Put on a helmet if you want. If you're younger than 15, then it's mandatory. And I think that makes sense.
what do you think, Henri?
I think we need to take a bigger picture here. And the number one cause for accident is speed. And the industry has done a lot on our side. For example, all our vehicles are capped in speed. It is not rocket science to enforce the speed on cars. In London, in Paris, it's written everywhere. The speed limit is 20 miles per hour, 30 miles per hour. It is not rocket science to put a camera, take a photo of the license and enforce it. Actually, they absolutely would love the revenues.
Right.
That said, they don't do it.
Yeah.
And most of the cars go much faster than that.
Yeah.
And every time I spend time at the hospital, I spend time with the fireman. We try to spend as much time with the local police to understand what we could do a better job at. Most of the time, once you're past the what can we do on the helmet, on the speed on your vehicle, they go back to the primary concern we have is speed of cars.
Right.
And so we're trying to do anything we can to help local stakeholders and local public to understand that our vehicles are capped. A scooter is more or less the speed of a mechanical bike. The electric bikes, they go a bit faster, but for sure they go much slower than a regular private bike. And if we did a better job with the speed of cars, everybody would be more safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Rebecca, I think Fredrik hit upon this. It's like, for safety, it's got to be all or none. So it's like, you can't regulate scooters and have, say, helmets and not bicycles or mopeds.
Right.
So in order for it to be, that's why we want to work with the cities. It's got to be safety for all types of transportation. And I think to Henri's point of view, we've also got to regulate from the point of vehicle speed. Not only our vehicles, but the car traffic.
Right.
And if we all work together, then you do make this environment in every city very, very safe.
Yeah,
but that's
it's
key.
incredibly unpopular to talk about regulating cars like that.
Yeah.
But the automotive industry has way more power in governmental bodies because they've got more money. Speaking of money, we're quick shift. We're not in given the early days of micromobility companies, we were looking at some pretty intense funding rounds, some pretty big valuations. I'm pretty sure Bird was at like 2.8 billion post money in like 2020 or something, and then when you sold, it was like 145 million. Are those
about right?
numbers?
Directionally correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is clearly, I don't know what was going on, what kind of hype was happening at the time, but this is a low margin business. This is not it has proven to not really be a venture backed model that really works in that way. How are you seeing fundraising right now, and also has there been a shift? Like, is this more of a public transit option than kind of a growth at all costs business?
I'll take that question first, I guess. The 2.8 billion predates me. I started in 2023.
Yeah, would you have taken it public?
No, I would not have taken that company public. I think there's a maturity of a company that needs to have in terms of process and operations before it goes public.
Right.
Clearly, back in 2017, 2018, venture, when businesses are growing 50 to 100% or sometimes 200%, you see the opportunity and you see this continue on growing for many, many years. It's a clear venture-back opportunity. I think now we're seeing, still strong growth, but you're seeing not only top-line growth, but EBITDA and free cash flow growth. And that type of profile of company, since it's been proven as a product, its ability to scale, capital is needed to continue on growing the scale, but without capital, it can still grow and still be profitable, just at a slower pace. That attracts private equity and growth equity firms. And that's the type of investors I think you're starting to see enter this space today.
What about like subsidizing from cities?
I think we already see subsidies from some cities, actually from some colleges that we operate in, and I would love to see a model where we see cities subsidize it, so we can actually reduce the price equivalent to public transportation, and that's where you could actually see increased adoption of micromobility.
Yeah. We agree. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, and in terms of I do want to ask another question about how your relationships with cities are at this stage. Well, I guess what kind of infrastructure do you think that you need to see from cities? What kind of investments from cities do you need to see for this to be to really take root and be a long-term solution?
More segregated bike lanes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to concur. I think they need to look at this as all vehicles, whether they're private or shared. And some people will want to own them, some people will want to rent them, and it's one class that needs to be boosted. The penetration of private bikes and shared bikes in London or in Paris is still tiny every day.
Yeah.
and you could do so much a better job. So it's this rebalancing of how you want to use the public space.
What about like parking bays or areas? You know, everyone's complaining.
It all goes together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
we don't like that.
what we have found out also for us and from the city's point of view, the best parking bay solution is to use existing bike racks or bike infrastructure if the city has that. And most European cities have a lot of public bike racks. And then you can just geofence a parking bay on that. Then you don't have to invest a lot in infrastructure. You can be more flexible if you have to move around the parking bays for some reason, events or accidents or something like that. So
I've seen some cities with just like an outline, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
in Tokyo, I think, or maybe Kyoto.
Yeah, and in many European cities as well, they've just painted on the ground, this is an e-bike and e-scooter parking.
Yeah.
Very cheap.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something a little different. I would say two things. One is it's a counter to how most cities think, but strictly limit the amount of vehicles in a market.
Yeah.
There's too many cities with way too many vehicles that make it just the streets look polluted with multiple competitors. And so limit the vehicles. I think using data, we can make the most out of the limited vehicles that we have to better deploy them at the right place at the right time. And then the other one I would say is just treat every competitor fairly and make sure they adhere to the rules of operations.
Yeah.
There are some competitors that push the envelope in terms of the amount of vehicles or how they operate, and I think cities are the ones that are enforcing the rules, and they need to enforce those rules, the rules that we as operators have decided to enter those markets with.
And I, on the other hand, think limiting the number of vehicles is not a good idea. I think it's better to pick 1 to 3 companies, based on quality, tenders, and so on, and then have flexible, number of vehicles. Because when we talk to users, we see that if the most important or top 3 most important thing is availability. Because if you use shared micromobility, you want a vehicle to be within, say, 60 or 100 meters from when you're opening the app. We see that the conversion from open app to ride goes down dramatically after, say, 60, 70, 80 meters. So you want the vehicle available within 60 meters. Otherwise, people won't use it. Then they do something else.
That's true. Yeah. What do you think about single operator cities, right? Like that was something that I think Spin was really pushing back in the day when they still existed. Well, not that they don't live on through you, but is that something that you would kind of push for just to make it? I don't know. It is a bit like as a consumer, it is a bit. I'm like, oh, which one do I pick, right? Like, it's hard to know if you don't really know much or have any brand loyalty or anything like that. Does that not just kind of cloud the market? Would you prefer to just have a city to yourself?
I mean, it depends on the size of the city. Paris and London should not have one operator only. But
well, New York has it. Smaller city, I guess, slightly, but.
Oh, okay. I thought they were.
Well, okay. So New York. So New York City is got the 5 boroughs, and in the Bronx, they've got the e-scooters. But most of New York City is just city bikes, Lyft.
Oh yeah. So it's a public city bike scheme.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
This Lyft motivate thing.
Yeah.
No, I think it makes sense for large cities to have, say, 1 to 3 operators. But for small cities, it definitely doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because if the natural limit in a small city is 300-400 vehicles, then it doesn't make sense to have 5 operators or 3 operators even with 100 vehicles each. It's bad for the consumer and not interesting for the operators.
Henri?
The most important is giving choice to the consumer, so maybe 2-3 operators, but not complete chaos, but also giving stability and long-term visibility, so then the operator can invest. The worst for all of us is a 1-year RFP, and you don't know what will happen in 12 months. Why would you invest in something like this?
Yep.
Once you start to think 3, 5, 6 years, then you can start to build competencies, hire local people,
Yes.
train them, you offer them opportunities. It's the same opportunities that will derive in the community afterwards.
Yeah. So
with a
Paris
better
is 4
service.
year, right?
Paris is 4 years.
Finally.
Yeah.
So what would your ideal be for a number of years?
I think 6 years would be great.
6 years is great. Yeah, 1 year was pitiful. Like that's so much investment to put into a city and then to lose it the next year.
And the worst was the UK.
Oh, yeah.
that legalized e-scooters, shared e-scooters, not private e-scooters in 2020. They said it would be a one-year pilot. That one-year pilot became 4 renewals. So
Oh, God. But you're in there now, right?
year.
You just entered the UK?
No, we've been there since 2020.
Oh,
but
what am I
the
thinking of?
predictability on the e-scooter side in the UK and to some extent e-bike side has been really, really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's probably about it for us today, folks. That started late, by the way. Thank you all for coming to join us, and thank you.
Thanks.